That's dumb because we all know there's way better ice cream than mint chocolate chip. If you're a mint chocolate chip fan, I totally apologize. But hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we would talk about some book ratings. Ratings that I have given books. Specifically, I would like to talk about those that I think I want to change. So obviously there's a couple of reasons that I would want to change my initial rating of a book. One would be just experience. The more that I read, the bigger my frame of reference gets for judging a book against all others. And sometimes I might think that a book is just average, but the more that I read and expose myself to books like it, the more I might think that that book actually stands out better than a lot of the others. Or vice versa. If I continue to read books like that 3-star and they're all better, that makes the 3-star pale in comparison. The other way is whether or not a book is memorable. And this is a big one for me because I read to feel things, and so if a book has made me feel all the feels and I walk away having experienced whatever emotional catharsis I needed to experience, chances are I'm happy with the book. The problem is that 2 years later I might have a really difficult time telling you what that book was even about. So I want my books to be memorable, ultimately. At least the books that I rate 5 stars, I want to be able to tell you why I rated them 5 stars and what they're about. In order to even recommend them, I have to do that. If I've rated a book really highly in the moment, but now in hindsight, I can't tell you much about it, I don't know if that book deserves that high rating. The flip side of being memorable, there's some books that maybe you weren't the biggest fan of in the past, but you can't forget about them. They stick with you. And you find yourself on a random day at a random moment having a very random thought about the book that you didn't care for very much and that you wanted to forget, but you just can't. So I want to scroll through my read list on Goodreads and just specifically talk about the books that I find that I really think I might change my ratings. Now this obviously lends itself to an even bigger debate about whether or not you should change your ratings. What rating matters? Does the rating right there in the heat of the moment matter? Or does the rating once you've had time to sit with a book matter more? I don't know. And I think the secret is doing it the same way every time. So I'm not even sure I'm going to click the stars in order to change the rating, but I am going to have a discussion about it. So I like rating a book in the heat of the moment, but that's because I'm a instant gratification kind of person. If I want all of my ratings and reviews to be 100% intellectual and technically sound, and I want to do my research and I want to outline the points that I think it's important to bring up, if I want to go through all of that trouble, then obviously I'm going to need time. But I like the initial response, a first impression. I like having that down in recorded history, even if I feel differently now. I think that my preferred method is to rate books right away. I should probably tell you how I rate books, and I might make this a more in-depth video if you guys are interested, but I'm just going to tell you briefly what the star ratings represent to me. A 5-star book, I'm stingy. I'm super stingy about 5-star books. I don't give a 5-star rating very often, and I don't mind that aspect of myself. I think that that is good. Other people see it as really negative or skeptical and cynical and critical and all the ulls. But basically a 5-star book for me has to evoke emotion. I have to have experienced whatever emotional catharsis I went into the book wanting to experience. It has to be entertaining. It has to be technically sound. I'm not the person to judge whether something is written impeccably or not. I'm not trained enough. What I can tell you is that in a 5-star book, there's nothing about the writing that distracts me from the story. That to me is when something crosses over into bad writing, is if the style the technical details or the methods of the author take me away from their actual storytelling, that's how I tend to judge writing. A 4-star is a 5-star book that just doesn't do every single thing perfectly. 4 stars are pretty common for me. I give a lot of 4 stars because, truth be told, I enjoyed myself. I had a good time. I might even reread the book. But if somebody asked me what my all-time favorite books are, whatever 4-star book that is won't show up on the list. Sometimes there are books that are almost perfect that I just dock a star because there's something that I personally can't get over. But for the most part, you'll find a lot of 4 stars from me, and it just means that I think the book is great. I think a lot of people will like the book, but it doesn't quite compare to the ones that I've collected as my favorites. 3 stars are tricky. The 3-star, I think, is the thing that everybody defines a little bit differently. To some people, 3-star is very middle of the road, while other people on a scale of 5, 2.5 stars is middle of the road. So it just depends. 3 stars, I define simply as, a good book that I think has an audience, but is definitely not for me. So that means that maybe I haven't felt what I needed to feel. Or maybe I did, but I didn't like the way that it was presented to me. Maybe there were some writing things that distracted me that I couldn't get over, but those are me things. And I think that general audiences can still appreciate the book. Basically, a 3-star is me recognizing a book's quality and merit, but admitting that I am not the one. I am not the one for this book. So a 3-star, in my mind, is in no way bad. 2 stars is bad. A 2-star book is definitely not for me in any way, shape, or form. Not for me. Also, though, it does some things that I think are going to be a problem for a lot of people. Usually 2-star books are poorly written. 2-star books tend to have a decent concept. They tend to be capable of telling you a story, but there's a lot of problems with that story. Plot holes or just things you can't ignore that are problems. On the flip side, a 2-star book may be written well, but there's shit about the story that I just can't tolerate. The author has made decisions that to me are crazy, that to me don't make a lot of sense, that I can very easily think of alternative ways to execute the ultimate point. Am I sorry that I read 2-star books? No. That's where 1 stars come in. 1-star ratings for me, again, not popular, about as popular as 5-star ratings for me, but 1 star is total waste of my time. I regret ever opening this book. I can't believe anyone likes this book. I can't believe this book got published. What else? Basically just a terrible experience all the way around. Things that the author tried to make me think were okay, and they're not. Things that the author thought they could do and get away with, and I would ignore them, and I won't. When I think of the 1 stars, the vast majority of them are content-based ratings. I don't know if I've ever seen 1-star writing. I'm sure I have somewhere. But typically my 1-star ratings are content-based, which means, are you nuts? Why would this be the story? Why would you be including this in a book? Why do you think this is entertaining? I've had 1-star books that I've immediately thrown in the garbage can. I have 1-star books that I tell you about with honesty. Some of the books that I've rated 1 star have earned 5-star ratings from other people across BookTube. It is what it is. I can't say that the opposite is true. I don't think I've ever come across a book that I've rated 5 stars that across BookTube is typically 1 star. I get giddy when you also rate something the same way that I've rated it. I feel validation, but ratings are super personal and individualized. Let me just look through these real quick and see if I would change my mind. Here's an interesting one. Baby teeth. by Zoya Stage. So this was the author's debut novel. It is the story of a family with a young daughter, 6. I believe she's 6, maybe she's 7. And that young daughter idolizes her father and hates her mother, wants her mother to go away, and goes so far as to try to make her mother go away. And I didn't like it, but I walked away rating it 3 stars. And over time, it feels like those feelings of disappointment and dislike have grown. I really didn't like this book. The book didn't really take us anywhere. There was only a slight escalation of events, not dramatic enough. And then there was an ending that was completely unsatisfying and didn't reveal much, and was also anger inducing. I think my 3-star rating for this initially was in fairness to the author with a debut novel. I think that it, focused too much on certain things and didn't pay enough attention to other things. I would probably, not drastically, but after thinking about it for a while, would probably do 2.5 or 2 for Baby Teeth. I don't think there would ever be a moment where someone would say, oh, I'm looking for a really interesting book to read, and I would say, Baby Teeth. I probably wouldn't recommend this book to anybody, just because this book doesn't stand out as anything that a certain type of reader should read. It doesn't do a great job representing any specific genre, category, or aspect of storytelling. So I don't even know who I would recommend this book to. Part of being a 3-star read is being able to pinpoint who would enjoy this book. And I'm not sure in this case. So yes, it would probably go to a 2 if I was going to click the button. But I'm not going to click the button. I'm just not going to do it. Waiting for Tom Hanks. I hated this book. I did. And trying to think, I remember feeling bad for hating this book. It was an anticipated read, but I don't really feel like anticipating something is reason enough to feel guilty for not liking it. There must have been some reason, but I remember trying to be as fair to this book as I could possibly be, and I ended up rating it 3 stars, but my goodness, this was a case of me not letting go. Like, I could not let go of my dreams for what I thought this book could be. And it wasn't. And I was in denial, I think, because this is another one that I would never recommend to people. I really, really disliked the protagonist of this book, the main character. The girl who was waiting for Tom Hanks. I really disliked her. I remember writing a review that said, Tom Hanks would not give this woman the time of day. One of my requirements for romance is to like the people that I want to be in a relationship. Otherwise, I want the other person to run. And I can't believe that I gave this 3 stars because I detested her that much. Because the male love interest was super great and really nice and cool and wonderful. And she was just a nightmare. This definitely needed to be 2 stars. I don't know what I was thinking. What was I thinking? I just didn't want to hate it. And I hated it. I don't think it's garbage. I don't think it was a waste of my time. But, if something like, what else did I rate 2 stars? Vicious by L.J. Shen is 2 stars, which, again, had 1/2 of the romantic pairing I detested, got 2 stars, then yeah, Waiting for Tom Hanks should definitely have been 2 stars. That was weak of me. I apologize. I need to reread Kylie Scott's Stage Dive series because book number 1, Lick, I only gave that 3 stars, but when I think back on it, I was like, oh, that was hot. I really liked that series. What was going on? I have to reread it because I don't remember anything about it. So I can't honestly say that 3 star is accurate. But when I think about it, I thought that I enjoyed it, but I only gave it 3 stars. Okay, here's Dread Nation. Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. This is the story. It's an alternative history, young adult novel that takes place in the time of the Civil War, and Civil War soldiers that are killed are reanimating as zombies. And so what was once the Civil War has instead become humans versus zombies. And our main character is, holy crap, absolutely delightful. She was sent off to a training school in order to become someone who fights zombies, which is basically how the country was repurposing slaves at that point. I only gave this 3 stars, and my only explanation for doing so, because when I look back at it, I really enjoyed this book. Like, for me, this is a 4-star read at least. I enjoyed it a lot. The only thing that I can think of is that historical timelines trip me up, and I don't have a ton of experience reading young adult. And I think in this case, it was a true frame of reference thing. And I wouldn't say that I have read enough that I would place this somewhere else on the scale based on other historical young adult that I've read. That's definitely not the case. But I look back on Dread Nation really fondly, to the point where I'm excited to read the second one. It is a series, and I'm excited to continue in it. And I wouldn't be if it were 3 stars. Like, the first book in a series and I rate it 3 stars, I'm likely not continuing. And I'm actually looking forward to continuing. So this one is real wrong. This one is real wrong. This book is a 4-star, at least. Sorry. Here's one for you. Calico by Callie Hart. I rated it 3 stars. I don't even have a clue. I couldn't even tell you the synopsis of this book. I have no idea what it was about. In a Dark, Dark Wood. In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. What? What is happening right now? I didn't like In a Dark, Dark Wood. I didn't hate In a Dark, Dark Wood. But no, I didn't like it. I think that the best thing about In a Dark, Dark Wood, which is the story of a woman who's invited to the bachelorette party of an acquaintance and really doesn't know any of the other people that this person knows, makes a deal with their one mutual friend to attend. And it's in the middle of the woods in this glass house. Our character is really untrusting of everyone, and someone does end up dying. And I think that the best thing about In a Dark, Dark Wood is the atmosphere, the ambiance, the setting. That part was scary and creepy. But overall, I don't have a ton of love for this story or respect for this story. I don't look back at it and really care much about it. And I have it as a 4-star, which is higher than the average star rating on Goodreads. Rarely happens to me. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this is another book that I think has an audience, but that it's definitely not me. And so I would be inclined to change this 4-star rating to a 3-star rating. Because whenever I talk about this book, it's never with adoration or excitement to be talking about it. It's mostly just, ugh. It's mostly like, oh, well, and I wouldn't read it again. I would never read In a Dark, Dark Wood again. Well, never say never, but I don't think that I would, and thus I don't think it should be 4 stars. I would go with a 3. This is where I start to hate that I'm so stingy with 5 stars. There's a whole list of books like The Whisper Man, The Kind Worth Killing, The Chalk Man, The Punch Escrow, all of which I really like. All of which are books that I talk about liking quite frequently on this channel. If I gave each of you $1 for every time I told you how much I liked The Whisper Man, I would be broke and you would all be rich. Therefore, I'm wondering why I have it rated as a 4-star and not a 5-star. What else does a book have to do? If I'm going to talk to everybody about how much I liked a book and it still not be a 5-star, my goodness, what else does a book have to do? I don't really remember having a specific debate in my head about Is this a 4-star? Is this a 5-star? Oh, I'm going to go with 4. I don't remember having that discussion with myself. So I'm wondering why it's a 4 and not a 5, because I can't remember anything that I was like, can't give it a 5 because of that. I mean, maybe there was one thing. Even with its imperfections, I still am so fond of it. And I still talk about it so stinking much. Like, would you think that it would be 5 stars as much as you hear me talk about it? And here I am talking about it again. Yeah, maybe The Whisper Man needs to be 5 stars. Wow. The Kind Worth Killing? Holy crap, I love that book. I love The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. This is the story of a married man who meets a woman one day in an airport. And they decide to kill his wife. He's vocal about some grievances that he has, and she says, well, wouldn't it be great to kill her? Something to that effect. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, but I loved this book. Again, I can't think of anything that would make me go, ugh, if only it did this, I would have given it 5 stars. Nothing. I can't think of anything. Now with some distance, I'm like, that book was phenomenal. What was I what was I doing? It was surprising, and it was clever, and it even had an ending that was clever. And I'm like, oh, I'm just giving it 4 stars. See how stingy I am? We could go back and forth about The Whisper Man. That one would be tough. A Kind Worth Killing is not tough. That book should be 5 stars. What was I doing? I'm dumb. And then, of course, The Chalk Man. I guess ultimately I would leave that at 4 stars. I did like it a lot, but I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't a good time. Although neither was Lost You by Halen Beck. That wasn't a good time at all, and I gave that sucker 5 stars. I do talk about The Chalk Man a lot. That one is, the average rating for that one is lower than both The Whisper Man and The Kind Worth Killing. So I know it's not for everybody. I guess maybe I'm comfortable with the 4-star for The Chalk Man. And as far as the Punch Escrow goes, the Punch Escrow by Tal Klein was a blast. It was fun. I had a great time reading that book. It's hard sci-fi about teleportation and what happens when there's a glitch in the teleportation. Basically, the way that teleportation in this book works is like uploading a file to the cloud, right? And if you then download that file to a different device, that file exists in both places unless you delete the original. And so that's how teleportation works in the Punch Escrow. Somebody enters a machine, that machine basically makes a copy of them, and then, I don't know, obliterates somehow the original and moves that copy. That copy is like a digital copy of them is moved to whatever location they wanted to teleport to. There's a glitch in the system which leaves the original existing and also sends the new person to their destination. I had a blast reading this book. I really did. I gave it 4 stars. I think the only reason that I can't change that now or right this second is because I don't have a lot of teleportation novels under my belt. Of course I liked it. It was fun and it was exciting. But does that mean that it's the most fun and exciting teleportation novel out there? Not necessarily. I have a very small frame of reference, so a 4 star is very safe. It says that I really liked this book. I have a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings about it. It's sentimental to me, but I am reserving the right to say that it's not as good as any teleportation book that I might read in the future. That's messed up. It's messed up, but that's the way but that's the way that it is. You know, that's like saying one flavor of ice cream is the absolute best when you haven't tasted all the flavors. The Marsh King's Daughter, I rave about that book too. There it is, 4 stars. I told you I'm stingy as hell. What did the Marsh King's Daughter do wrong? I don't know. The Marsh King's Daughter is about a woman who was raised in captivity but didn't realize that she was. Her father had kidnapped her mother and was living with her in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, completely off the grid and with no contact with civilization. And they had a daughter, and that daughter grew up thinking that that was normal. Something happened. I don't know what. The daughter ends up making her way to civilization and sending the police back to rescue her mother and arrest her father. And so that's the backstory. But the book in present day is her learning that her father has escaped from prison. And I liked this book a lot. Rave about this book all the time. So what was my problem? I can't honestly remember. Although admittedly, I had a great interaction with the author of this novel, Karen Dion, and so that may be fueling my fondness for it, was liking the author so much. Michigan, I'm real sentimental about Michigan. That may be fueling my adoration. I don't know. If you didn't know me and you didn't know any of my ratings, you only like watched my videos, you would think that I had given The Marsh King's Daughter 5 stars. So I either rated that book wrong or I need to learn how to speak about it more accurately. The Night Before by Wendy Walker, I gave that 4 stars. It was an arc that I read. It was about a sister who's living with her married sister, and she leaves one night and doesn't return. I gave this 4 stars, and to be honest with you, I don't have any attachment to it. I definitely don't remember a ton of it. I feel like it was a little bit expected and predictable, a little bit cliche. Now that I have more experience with the genre and have read books written before this one that did similar things, I don't find myself recommending it to people. When somebody asks me for great thriller recommendations, I don't go, The Night Before by Wendy Walker. I liked it for sure. This would probably be more of a 3-star for me. Really, 3.5 maybe, because it was enjoyable. I Am Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells. I gave that one a 4-star. Again, that's another one that I tend to talk about a lot, that someone who hears me talk about it may think that I would have rated it higher, or that I would have given it a higher rating. I spoke about it very recently in my Pick My Book selection when I was offering to continue in the series as one of your choices. So I'm not going to go into it all again. Just go watch my other videos. What's wrong with you? And I will say, like, I don't feel as strongly about this one as I do, say, about The Marsh King's Daughter or The Kind Worth Killing or The Whisper Man, all of which received 4 stars. I don't feel as strongly about this one, so maybe this one is deserving of 4 stars, while the others should be elevated to 5, because they don't feel like they're on the same level, but I did like I'm Not a Serial Killer quite a bit. Here's confirmation. The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torrey, also known as the Deanna Madden series, book 1. This is the story of an online cam girl who literally locks herself in her apartment because she has an uncontrollable desire to commit murder. This is an erotic thriller. It's filled with very adult content, and I really liked it. And without hesitation, I would change my 4 to a 5. And erotic thriller is not something that I get enough of. So I appreciate The Girl in 6E. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not the kind of person that needs erotica in their thriller, if you know what I'm saying. But I appreciate The Girl in 6E for being one, for sticking its neck out there and doing what a lot of other authors don't do, whether they actively avoid it or just isn't something that they think is interesting or that they think would sell. But yeah, like an erotic thriller, like, you know, characters who are exposed to so much darkness have a tendency to carry that darkness through other aspects of their lives. I'm just surprised you don't see it very often. And I enjoyed this book a lot. Maybe I'm a freak. The Unhoneymooners. What the fuck? Okay, I gave the Unhoneymooners 4 stars. What am I doing? I absolutely love the Unhoneymooners. That's a 5-star book. Like, shut the front door right now. Yeah, that's what I don't even like Christina Lauren, and I love that book. Come on. Obviously, it's a 5-star read. If I could argue with my past self for a few minutes, I would have a great time, let me tell you. Now we're getting into the 5 stars, so maybe I'll come across some 5 stars that I was a bit too easy on. A lot of the books on my Goodreads list that are rated 5 stars are actually books I haven't talked about on the channel. They're from back in the day, before I had a booktube channel. And I would probably definitely rewrite them if I reread them again. But being just a fan of like self-published ebook romance at the time, there was a lot of 5 stars in there. And it just seems unrealistic to me that all of those books would be 5 stars. Some of them, the 5 stars would hold up. Like, I don't know. I've never talked to you guys about it. I'm going to have to do a video of amazing books that I read before booktube. Write that down. Somebody write that down so I don't forget. Amazing books that I read prior to starting my booktube channel. Most of them will be romance. Warning for those of you who are not down for that. Most of them will be romance. But yeah, it looks a lot like every book I read before I started booktube was a 5-star. My own rating system and protocol and procedures are not without fault, obviously, because there's quite a few books that I would seriously consider changing the rating for or re-rating as something different. But there's probably a lot of people out there that look back differently on books that, you know, with life experience and reading experience and changes in the world, I mean, of course, ratings are going to change. So let me know what you think about those books that I brought up. Let me know if there's any books that you've read and rated that you know for sure you would change the rating on if you could, which you can if you want to. That's totally up to you. But I'm interested in knowing what else people think they may have judged incorrectly. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you all very soon.